Have you ever been working on a track and it just sounds kind of sterile?
Yeah.
Like all the elements are there,
Yep.
but it's missing that warmth, that energy that really grabs you. Well, there's this thing called audio saturation,
Yes.
and honestly, it might just be the secret weapon you need.
It's one of those techniques that can really make a huge difference in how a track feels.
It's like it injects that missing character, that depth that just makes everything pop.
It really does. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yep, we've got some really cool resources that break down the whole concept of audio saturation.
Yeah. How it works, why it's so essential, especially in modern music production.
We really want to make sure that by the end of this, you really understand this effect, like really get it.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool.
We want to demystify it, show you how you can use it to get that warm, rich, kind of analog sound everyone loves.
That depth, that...
That dimension.
Yes.
And the best part is you don't need to be a total audio wizard to make it work for you.
That's right.
The stuff we're looking at covers a lot of ground. The basics, different types of saturation, all kinds of practical applications.
So we can really explore all the different flavors you can create.
Exactly. We're going to go deep and unlock the magic behind saturation.
So let's start with the fundamental question. What exactly is audio saturation?
Yeah, like what's happening to the sound?
Well, essentially, it's what happens when you push an audio signal beyond what the analog equipment can handle cleanly.
Okay, so it's like you're overloading it in a way.
In a way, yeah. But instead of just getting a louder sound, you get this interesting nonlinear response from the hardware.
Non-linear. So instead of a clean boost, the hardware starts to color the sound.
Exactly. It's like the hardware adds its own sonic fingerprint as the signal gets stronger. You get subtle compression and this thing called harmonic distortion, and that's what gives you that full, warm, and vibrant sound we associate with saturation.
Interesting. So it's this sort of happy accident of analog gear that we're now replicating in our digital world. Let's be real, most of us aren't recording through a vintage Neve console every day.
Not quite, no. But that's where plugins that emulate these classic pieces of gear come in. Preamp emulations, channel strips, all that good stuff.
Right, so we can get a taste of that analog goodness even when we're working in the box.
Precisely. And they let us introduce saturation into our recordings in a really controlled way.
So we're intentionally adding a bit of that imperfection to our super clean digital audio.
In a way, yeah. And that's where the magic happens.
So what's actually happening to the sound when we add saturation?
Well, it's essentially the result of two key things. Something called soft knee compression and the generation of these new frequencies called harmonics.
Okay, let's break that down. First, soft knee compression. What is that exactly?
As the signal gets louder, the gain reduction starts to happen smoothly, without any harshness. It's this smooth reduction that contributes to that full, warm sound you get with saturation.
Got it. And then there's the harmonics generation. What are harmonics and why do they matter?
Harmonics are basically extra frequencies that are musically related to the original sound.
Okay.
They add this complexity and richness, almost like layers of complementary tones.
Well, that's cool. So where do these extra tones actually come from? Like in the real world of analog gear, what creates them?
It all boils down to how different components react when they're pushed. Things like the magnetic tape in a tape machine, the vacuum tubes in an amp, transformers, even transistors. Each of them adds a unique kind of flavor as they saturate.
So the type of equipment you use shapes the type of saturation you get. Like each has its own recipe.
Exactly. And it's not just some abstract thing. It actually changes the shape of your audio waveforms. You can see it.
Whoa, really? So what does saturation look like on a waveform?
You'll notice a few things. First, the peaks and valleys get closer together.
Right, because of the compression.
Exactly. You also often get this thing called soft clipping, which smooths out the tops of the waveforms.
Ah, so instead of those harsh digital peaks, it's a gentler roll-off.
Exactly. You might also see this transient softening, where the initial attack of sounds gets a bit rounded.
So more musical.
Yeah. Less in your face, more pleasing to the ear.
Cool. It's really fascinating how all these little changes add up to a more balanced sound.
Definitely.
Our material really emphasizes the role of harmonics in saturation. Why is that so crucial?
Because those extra harmonics are a huge part of what makes a sound engaging. It's like adding depth and texture that wasn't there before.
It breathes life into the sound.
Exactly. And these harmonics aren't all the same. You have even order harmonics and odd order harmonics.
Oh, interesting. So what's the difference in how they sound?
Even order harmonics are kind of like octave doublings. They add warmth, smoothness, musicality.
So like a richer, rounder tone.
Yeah, like adding a velvet layer. Odd order harmonics, on the other hand, add grit, edge, presence.
So you'd use those when you want something to cut through the mix, like a distorted guitar.
Exactly. And the type of saturation you choose determines which of these harmonics are more prominent.
Oh, cool. So the source material mentions that tape saturation is mostly even order harmonics.
Yeah, and that's why it has that classic vintage mellow tone.
That warm analog tape sound everyone loves.
Exactly. It's like it smooths away any harshness and adds a nice warm blanket.
I love that. So what about tube saturation? What's happening there?
Tube saturation is really interesting because it gives you a blend of both even and odd harmonics. That's what gives it that rich, full-bodied sound.
So it's like the best of both worlds.
You could say that. You get the warmth from the evens and a bit of grit from the odds. It's very harmonically complex and often very musical.
Okay, cool. So we've got tape for smooth warmth, tubes for this complex richness. What about transistor saturation?
Transistor saturation is more about those odd order harmonics. That's what gives it its sharper, more aggressive sound.
Oh, so like that punchy in-your-face kind of sound.
Yeah, like some solid state circuits,
Yeah.
Clean, punchy, high definition.
Cool. Now, transformers were mentioned as well. What's their role in saturation?
Transformer saturation is usually more subtle.
Okay.
It can add weight to the low end and this gentle coloration.
More of a subtle effect.
Yeah, less obvious than tubes or transistors, but it contributes to a sense of depth and solidity in the sound.
So we've got all these different flavors of saturation, each with its own sonic personality. And the cool thing is we can access all of these using plugins.
Exactly. And the tech has gotten so good that they really capture the nuances of the analog gear they're emulating.
Yeah, it's amazing. Companies like UAD, Waves, and Sound Toys. Those are some heavy hitters in the plugin world.
For sure. They make some incredible emulations that really let you experiment with different saturation styles.
Okay, so we've covered the different types of saturation, but the material also talks about these things called channel strip emulations.
Ah, yes. Those are really cool.
It sounds like they're more than just a single preamp plugin, right?
Yeah, they're basically trying to recreate the entire signal path of a channel on a classic analog mixing console.
Wow, so you're not just getting the preamp saturation, you're getting the EQ, the filters, even the fader.
Exactly. It's like having a slice of a vintage console. They mentioned the SSL 4000, AV8RS, and the API Vision as examples.
Those are legendary consoles.
Yeah.
What's the advantage of using a full console emulation?
One of the big benefits is that it can really help to glue your mix together. Running multiple tracks through the same emulation adds a consistent sonic character across everything. It's like giving your whole mix that analog vibe.
Gotcha. It's like everything's passing through the same sonic filter, making it more cohesive.
That's a great way to put it.
So we've covered what saturation is, how it works, the different types, but how is it actually used in music production?
In so many ways. One common use is to add warmth to tracks that sound too clean or digital. It's amazing how a little saturation can breathe life into something that sounds sterile.
So like if you have a synth that sounds a bit thin.
Yeah, or a vocal that's too pristine. It can also enhance the texture and harmonic richness of instruments, make them fuller and more engaging.
Right, like adding a layer of depth and interest.
Exactly. And it can be used more subtly, too, just to gently control dynamics, smooth things out, help them sit better in the mix.
Oh, interesting, like a subtle kind of glue.
Exactly. And of course, you can use it to create vintage or lo-fi sounds, too.
That makes sense, to get that retro vibe. But what about in more contemporary music? Is saturation still relevant?
Oh, absolutely. It can really help elements cut through a busy mix. Like instead of just making things louder, the extra harmonics help them stand out in a more subtle, pleasing way.
Oh, that's smart. So it's not just about loudness, it's about presence.
Exactly. And this isn't just for music either. Sound designers use it all the time to shape and add character to sounds.
It's a versatile tool. Now, the material mentions this important thing about gain staging with saturation. Why is it so important to get the input level right?
Because the effect of saturation is really dependent on the level of the signal going into it.
Okay.
If the level's too low, you might not even hear the saturation. And if it's too high, you can get this unpleasant distortion. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
Right, that balance between warmth and just plain bad sound.
Exactly. And it's worth mentioning that saturation and distortion, while they're related, aren't the same thing.
Yeah, the material does make a clear distinction between them.
Saturation is more about gentle musical clipping, adding warmth, harmonics, emulating that analog behavior. Distortion is much more aggressive, harsher clipping. It can completely change the sound.
So saturation enhances, distortion transforms.
Exactly. Saturation's about adding subtle character, helping things blend, while distortion is about dramatic effect.
Cool. Well, this has been a really fascinating dive into audio saturation. I feel like we've covered so much ground.
We have, from the basics to some really cool applications.
So to wrap things up for our listeners, what are the key takeaways from all of this?
I think the big one is that saturation is a powerful tool for making your music sound better, richer, more engaging. It's not just about vintage sounds. It's about adding that special something that can be hard to get otherwise.
Right. It's about taking your tracks from technically good to emotionally impactful.
Exactly. And with all the amazing plugins out there, it's easier than ever to explore this world.
Awesome. So what would you say is a good next step for our listeners?
Just start experimenting. Try out different saturation plugins, play with channel strip emulations, and see how they work for you. A/B test, compare the sound with and without saturation, and see what you like.
Get hands-on and really listen to the difference it makes.
Exactly. That's the best way to learn.
I hope everyone listening feels inspired to start exploring this amazing technique.
I do too. And as you go back to your own mixes, think about this. What elements in your tracks could benefit from a little touch of saturation? Maybe a vocal that needs some warmth, or a drum track that needs a bit more punch. Really listen, and you might be surprised how transformative this simple technique can be.
It's all about those subtle touches that can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of audio saturation.
Well said.